Hey everyone, welcome back to Ranked Podcast. Your host Ben here. Today I'm here with Jarod. Jarod is the founder of Team Blue Dog, which is an SEO agency. Very excited to have you here, Jarod. Thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So I was stumbling, just browsing through Facebook, and I noticed Jared's post. He mentioned and he talked about how he just flipped and sold his first affiliate site. I just sent him a message and asked him to maybe join me for an episode. Here he is. We'll just go over his story, how he got started. Jared, tell us how you got started with everything, how you got into the crazy field of SEO.
Yeah, sure. So when I initially got into SEO, it was like a lot of people kind of by accident. What happened was I was in high school at the time. I finished high school a year and a half early, and then I was going to college and I had to pay for it myself. So I was like, okay, how do I make money? So I just Googled, like a lot of people do, how to make money online, found a ton of 100% legitimate opportunities, anything from clicking on surveys all day to, investing in these shady companies and everything like that. But one thing I did find that I was like, okay, maybe I could do this was writing online. So people are probably familiar with sites like Text Broker. So I signed up for a site that was kind of similar to that, and I was writing content. Now this was 2012. So a lot of people were wanting SEO content at this point in time. So they were like, add this amount of keywords into this article this amount of times. I had no idea why I needed to do that, but had decent enough writing skills being as young as I was compared to the types of people that were on that site where English is their second or third language. And so I was getting a decent amount of traction where I was, fairly busy with the amount of work that I was doing, not making a lot of money. But I knew that there must have been a reason why I had to add all these keywords and stuff in there. And I didn't really realize it until someone wanted me to write an article about SEO. So they wanted me to write about an article about SEO. So I researched it. Fast forward, didn't really care too much about it, whatever. It sounds kind of cool. And then went to college doing that, started freelancing at the time because I got picked up from a corporate marketing job, which is where I thought I was going to go. I went to school for marketing, have a degree in marketing. I was like, great, I'm going to climb the corporate ladder. Learned a little bit about freelancing. So at one time I was going to school, freelancing, corporate marketing job, because eventually I just didn't like it. And a couple months after I started freelancing, started working for like $5 an hour on Upwork, just to kind of get my feet wet with SEO. And then it got picked up by an agency. They were offering me double what I was making in my corporate job. So right away, I was like, okay, great. I can make double per hour what I'm currently making. I can work from home and I can work in a field that I'm actually interested in. Sign me up. So worked for them about 3 to 6 months of working for them. I only worked for them, nothing else. And I was like, you know what? I'm still interested in SEO. I want to learn a lot more about it. I want a lot more experience. So I started freelancing again while working for them full time. So I started doing some white label work for other agencies. I started working directly with clients while working full-time for this agency. So I got a lot of more experience with it. Fast forward about a year and a half. So I've been with that agency for just under 2 years. And I would say about 18 months in, I started declining my time because I had a lot of side work going on. So I went from full-time to part-time, then eventually from part-time to no time. This was about 2017 into 2018 was kind of my transition from being an employee for the last time as of right now, who knows, in my life as to this point, and kind of going full in on my own. Then a couple months later, I was like, you know what, I have all these clients. What do I really want to do? I guess I'll actually try to become an agency. So that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years. And then about 16, 18 months ago, agency's going well. And I'm like, I know so many people that are doing the affiliate side of things. I have to give it a go. Even if it's just a couple hours a month side of things, like I have to have a site. I have to try it. And then I bought my first site and now I had a total of 5 and I just sold my first. And that's basically how it is.
Awesome. And what kind of sparked the idea from just writing the article about SEO to actually digging into it deeper, learning about it? What was, did you just view it like as a way to make money, of course, or was it also just how does this all work? How does it come together into marketing?
Yeah, it was just general curiosity because they wanted me to write an article like how to do SEO or something like that. So that brought me to like a Moz 101 guide. And so I read about it a little bit and I was like, oh, okay, so like there are some things that are like keywords and things matter with like what you do on your website that affects where you show up on Google. Like okay, whatever. And so like I wrote that one article, didn't pay too much attention about it, but it was always in the back of my mind. And so eventually when I kind of got to that corporate job and I was like, I'm really not feeling it. They had me do, I think it was, what did they have me do? They had me do some amount of keyword tracking. So they were very SEO unaware. So they didn't have a keyword tracker. They had me manually go through Google and like indicate where it was, because I didn't even know that a rank tracker was a thing either. And so I think that if I recall correctly, that may have been the thing that triggered my memory of like, oh wait, wasn't this a thing that I kind of learned about a little bit? And I think what probably happened was I most likely went back and like found that like Mozgat or whatever, and then signed up for Upwork for them. So I think that might have been the point where I was like, maybe I should look into this a little bit more.
And I also recently read an article, I think it was on SEO Butler, right? That you posted about automation. That's another thing you're very big on from what I read and researched. So I'm just also wondering how you got into that. Was it the pain of manually tracking the rankings that inspired you to look into automation and everything like that?
I call myself efficiently lazy. And so I don't, so like, here's the thing. I want to achieve the end goal with as little effort as possible. So like when I say things like, I graduated high school a year and a half early. I also finished college a semester early. People are always like, okay, cool. Like you must be smart. I was a CD student in high school. I just figured out a way to be able to gain more credits to be able to graduate a lot faster. I just went through summer in college to be able to get some extra semesters during like periods of time where they basically do like 2 times speed because it's only half the time within breaks between semesters. And so like, I just can't be bothered to do things that can be done in less time than they actually take. So for the automation, when I was in that corporate job, kind of in the interim of like learning SEO and whatnot, I thought I would get into web development. So I learned a lot about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, etc. So I had a working programming knowledge. I was also playing around with the idea of getting into cybersecurity. So I would do things like I would go through like hacking forums and like all stuff like that. I would mess around on Kali Linux, which if anyone knows what that is, it's basically it's an InfoSec operating system. And so I had a working technical knowledge of like just how things work. I played around with APIs, et cetera, et cetera. And so kind of over time, that was just like when I'm bored, like maybe I'll like build something for the hell of it. And then when I was working at an agency, we had like no automation, et cetera. And there was this guy that I worked with that was pretty good at Excel. And so I was like, man, like the way that you're able to sort the tables and the data, you look through it so much faster than I can. And so I started learning about just very basic things like how to use VLOOKUP, how to use array formulas, how to use the query function. And that kind of built into, oh, wow, you can actually build scripts into Google Sheets. And the script editor is literally just JavaScript, which is a language out of any programming language, is the one I know the most. So I'm like, okay, great. And then because a lot of programming languages are very similar. So it's like, okay, I don't necessarily know how to write Python, but I know how to go to Stack Overflow, grab a script, make some edits by Googling what does this thing do? What does this mean? And then have it work for me. So it's just kind of a transition of like, okay, great. Here's how I can use built-in features and functions of Google Sheets to like do things faster. Here's all these applicable instances, because everything we do in the industry is based off of spreadsheets. Then, okay, great. What can the spreadsheet not do for me? And how is there a way for me to write a script that I can have it do it for me there? And I just transitioned beyond that. It's just looking a lot more of just my already functional knowledge of how to automate things. So like, for example, Screaming Frog has a lot of automation potential where if you like in local SEO, there's something called citations that are really important. It's basically just directory listings. Now, the issue is that when you order citations, you're probably with a vendor because you're generally not doing that in-house. You're not ordering like 1 or 2, you're ordering like 25, 50, 100, etc. So the issue is you get all those links. You need to look at, okay, do they link to the right page? What anchor text do they use? Does that link actually exist? It takes a while to go through that. You send it to a VA, just wait for them to do that. However, if you just go to Screaming Frog, crawl all those links, export all the outlinks, and then just filter through it to see which of the outlinks actually contain your domain name, then you can automatically just pull through if those links exist, what page they link to, and the anchor text. So just things like that, just having working knowledge of like, okay, here are the tools that I know how to use. Here's this other thing. How can I make these work together? It's a crappy explanation, I know, but it just works in my head. And so I just I just go off
Yeah,
them because
it makes sense. You described it very well, how you have a goal and then you just look for a way to achieve it as efficiently as possible. The citation example is excellent. Would you maybe have any other examples that apply more applicably to affiliate SEO or just like regular content sites?
Yeah, sure. So I have one that is public is I have a keyword research automation tool, which basically what it does is you pull in data from I think version 2 is released. I don't think I've released version 3 yet. So I think it only uses Ahrefs. But basically what you do is you put in your Ahrefs information, your competitor's Ahrefs information. So let's say you're going after, I don't know, best gaming chair or whatever, right? So you put in Google, grab all your competitors, grab yourself as well, throw them into Ahrefs, export all their CSV files, combine all the CSV files just so you only have to upload one. You upload it to one sheet, and what happens is on another sheet, it parses out all the duplicates. It parses out anything that doesn't have search volume. So what you have is a clean list with no duplicates of the keyword and the search volume. Then what you do is you just manually indicate, because there's no real great automated way to do this. You can do it automatically, but just turns out not to be really worth it, in my opinion. We just go through and go, okay, is this a keyword I want to target? Yes or no. So you indicate, okay, great, this is what's targeting. And then you just indicate, okay, what page do you want to map this to? So you have your keyword research, your keyword mapping. So you're like, okay, I want to map this page to my best gaming chair page. I want to map this page to my best gaming computer page, et cetera, et cetera. And then there are other sheets that you'll just duplicate and just rename. So you have your best gaming chair sheet, your best gaming computer sheet, and automatically maps the keywords by connecting it. And then what it does on the mapping sheet is it pulls in keyword search volume, keyword difficulty, and what competitors of all the ones that you pulled in rank for this too. So maybe you pull in like 20 competitors, but only 8 of them actually rank for this one individual term or whatever it may be. So that's one that could be applicable there.
Awesome.
And have another one that isn't released yet. That's we'll see when we release it, because I'm still working out some of the details, but it's a competitor analysis sheet where one of the things that it does, which is really cool, is it takes all the competitors and it analyzes their backlinks based on DR level. But what it does is there's the sheet and there's a bunch of formatting where it's like, okay, these 10 cells need to be merged. And then over here we have DR levels like 0 to 10, 10 to 20, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have information on how many links fall into this category. And so in order to make that calculation, we have to get information from like 2 or 3 other sheets. And we also have to format that sheet by how many competitors that we have. So it's just a script that basically goes through and it grabs all that information and it formats the sheet as it's going so that you don't even have to format it. And that's one of the cooler ones that at least I like watching it run, just because I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, so just looking at like, okay, great, this is what I need to do. How can I no longer have to do this because I cannot be bothered to do this myself?
Yeah, definitely. I always kind of try to explain the importance of like a content plan. Personally, I always start off sites just with a content plan, right? Just kind of mapping different keywords out, researching the competitors, what topics are working for them. And I think like just from using this type of like Excel file, it's super useful because it generates everything for you, right? At the end of the day, you can just kind of see what you need to do. Just wondering, where is this available? I'm guessing it's on your website, right?
Yeah, so teambluedog.com/keyword-research will bring you to the keyword research one. The competitor analysis one isn't released right now. Eventually it will be. And everything like that gets through it. If you're probably best place is either sign up for the email list or my YouTube channel, and eventually it'll be released at some point in time. But yeah, if you want to download keyword research sheet, you can find it there.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll just link that in the description. It should be good to go. Cool. Okay, so now you're learning automation. This was while working in the agency. You started experimenting with the automation.
A little bit. So when I was working at the agency, I started learning basics of some of the Excel functions like array formula, VLOOKUP, etc. Query was something that it took me a while to really get into my head. But it was kind of this necessity because I didn't really understand how to delegate at the time. And so what happened was I had all this work and I didn't have all this time. There was a lot of things falling through the cracks. Things were taking so much time. And so I had to force myself to figure out how to basically create more time for myself because the thought of delegation and things like that just wasn't in my head at the time. And so that was after I had left the agency. I had been working for myself. I'd say it was probably 6 to 8 months into 2018 that I really started to try to do some amount of automations. And it was just a lot of really small things that eventually just like, okay, great. I built this small thing. Now I'm working on the sheet again. I wonder if I could also do this over here. Okay, great. Now the next time I'm doing this, here's a little bit more of how I can build up this automation. So it wasn't until after I'd been gone with that agency. And then even after that, it was like a very slow transition initially, because I was like, I have no time. I have no idea how to properly hire people. I need to, figure out how I can, not just completely crash and burn. And so that's kind of how it was. And now there's a lot of benefits from it that I'm seeing while considering hire people. Because now it's like, maybe beforehand you would have had a VA spend 10 hours doing this one task at $5 an hour. So that's a $50 cost. But now it only takes them 2 hours. So not only are you saving that amount of money, but you're also saving their amount of time. So now that VA can now take on more work before you have to hire another one. So because of that, you might, maybe in terms of affiliates, maybe you can have one VA working on, 5 sites at a time, depending on the size of your sites. Well, once you get that 6th site, normally you'd have to hire a VA. And if you only hire full time, then you just have to, because you got one more site, you have to make a $15,000 a year commitment or something like that, depending on how much you pay them, compared to, okay, great, here's all this automation. Now this VA can work on 7 sites. So now once I have that VA working on 7 sites, once I get the 8th one, then I can hire that person and they're going to be able to work on 7 sites as well. So there's just a lot of benefits. And when it comes to like the agency side of things, we can also do things like when we look at increasing profit margins or being able to do more work than competitors for the same rate, or et cetera, et cetera. So the agency has, in my opinion, more pros to it, just because we're on the client-facing side of things and we have to work within their budgets and meet certain milestones, which you can be a lot more flexible with your own projects. But yeah, so there's a ton of benefits, not just between saving time, because that's what most people do is they mitigate time. They go, oh man, this is taking me 20 hours a week. I can't do this. I'm going to hire someone it's going to take them 20 hours a week. Well, all you've done, it still takes them the same amount of time. You've just moved whose time that is going to. And it might actually take them 25 hours a week, because maybe you're just better than them because you've been doing this for 5 years. They've been doing it for 2 or whatever. And so now what happens is eventually they'll get more work, and then you have to hire more and more and more. And because in any sort of, at least on the agency side of things, employees for most businesses tend to be the number one expense. Whatever your payroll is, it's going to be like the highest expense on your P&Ls. So the lower that you can have it, the massive difference that'll make on your profit margin.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm really focused on, is how can we minimize the amount of payroll expenses that we have. I'd rather pay a software $400 a month if that saves me from having to hire a $2,000 a month employee.
Yeah, I think you're also really successful with it because you're focusing on a totally different thing. Like, in my opinion, the vast majority of agencies right now are only focusing on one thing, investing all their money into one thing, sales, right? Mm-hmm. But you kind of took a step forward and just started thinking in a different way, right? How can you kind of maximize and improve the efficiency of your agency, right? And thus, in my opinion, you're first off be able to do more for less, but at the same time also guaranteed like the client satisfaction is better, because I'm also guessing the error rate is lower, right?
Yes and no. So the error rate lower, yes. That's one of the other benefits of automation, is that so for example, Screaming Frog, which I also have, so if you go SEO Butler, Screaming Frog automation, I have an entire article on how you can use the CLI or the command line interface to automate Screaming Frog. And so what you can do is, instead of having an SOP that's, let's say, 50 steps, where every single one of the steps can be screwed up in one way or another, you might be able to, through automation, make that into 3 steps. And there's a lot less margin of error there, which is one of the additional benefits. So yes, you can have fewer errors in that regard. When it comes to client satisfaction, the challenge is that, and this is something that took me a while to learn, is that results doesn't equal happiness. We have clients that get really amazing results and they're just never happy, with other clients that get, not so great results and they're always super happy to pay invoices and everything like that. So it certainly makes us feel better about the work that we're able to do. But I mean, at the end of the day, there are certain, it's often not the results that really make people truly happy. It's those small other things that kind of come across the way. And we actually just did an entire podcast talking about that as well, because it's kind of it's something that doesn't really seem that obvious. It's very logical that, hey, if you spend $1, you make $10 back, you'd be happy. But then they're like, oh, that's great, but I don't like the size of this button on my website, so I don't care if you made me $1 million because I'm not happy about that. So it would seem like it would make people happy, but not always, unfortunately.
Yeah, something I also noticed just working with a few clients is that often, of course, they're happy when you deliver good results, but for them, it's also very important, like the relationship that you build with them. For example, overcoming small challenges, things like that, super important, just in my opinion, because the more trust you build with them, just the more happy they'll be to work with you, the longer they'll stick with you and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've lost clients before because we were doing really great work, but I was really busy and it took me a little bit longer than I would ideally want to respond to an email that wasn't even critical. And so they were like, hey, you take too long to respond. This isn't working. Even though that, in terms of what they were paying me for, it was working. The email was just something basic like, hey, can you send me this again because I lost it, or it's not kind of mission critical, if you will. There's a lot of little things that can kind of either make or break the relationship with the client that have nothing to do with the actual results of the campaign.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Cool. So, okay, now agency is up and running, it's going well. You come back from Chiang Mai, I'm guessing, and you're excited to look into affiliate, as we always are for coming back from Chiang Mai. So how did you go about the first site, buying it, everything like that?
Yeah, sure. So the first site was I eventually just kind of I mulled it over for a while thinking, affiliate's nice, I should get into this at some point. Let me put it on my list of things to do. And then so Chiang Mai was November, got back into the States. It was actually it was late October, early November. So I got back to the States maybe mid-November. And then it wasn't until I think August of the following year is when I officially bought my first site. So it was almost like an entire year went by. And so I just went on Facebook and I was like, hey, is anybody selling an affiliate site? And so I apologize. That was the first site that I bought. The first site that I started was June of that year. So still about like 6-7 months. But what happened was I had a client who's now a business partner who wanted to get into affiliate himself because he learned about it. He was like, hey, this is really interesting. And I was basically like, well, sounds great. You know nothing about this business model. You shouldn't do this. However, I can help you on this. So then he was like, okay, great. We might as well do it together. And so what I did was I just found a pre-made affiliate site from SERP Seeds. And it was like $2-3 grand for a site that already had like 4 or 5 money pages, a couple of informational pages. And so that was the first site that I started. And then the first site that I bought was in August, just by asking on the Facebook groups.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so which story you like more?
Well, it depends if you want to hear about failures or wins, because the first site that I started, the one that I bought from SERP Seeds, which it's certainly not their fault, it's mine. That one's currently like almost 9 grand in the hole. Because basically I went way too aggressive on it, because that was, maybe that's a better start, because, not everything's all wins. So basically I bought the site for like 2-3 grand off them. And I was like, okay, great. I'm going to put in all this time, love, and effort into this site. And it is the site that I've put in the most amount of effort in, and is the site that I've made the least amount of money for. So I went really, really extreme on it, because I was doing all this keyword research. I had this entire plan of here's all the direct niches that we could get into. Here's all the side niches that we could get into. So for example, if it was, a printer site or whatever, it was like, okay, great, here are the best printers. I was also mapping out like, okay, great, here are other office supplies, and here's how we can make it to an office supply site. But eventually here's all we can make it into, a business equipment site or whatever, kind of like going like, here's the next level. So I was just doing way too much planning. Yeah. And so I was also planning out tons and tons of informational articles, money pages, because on the client side of things, you'll have like the ratio of like informational pages to money pages is, way higher in the informational compared to affiliate, where I was like, okay, so for every money page, I need 5 to 10 informational pages. We're going to pay, top quality writers for all the content. We're going to buy a bunch of links to all the pages, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, the site itself makes like, depending on the month, because it's kind of seasonal, I would say maybe average is like $80 to $100 a month. So it's not making much, and it's about $9,000 in the hole. We spent a lot of money on content, a lot of money on links, and so that was like a kind of a realization. And I almost decided after that to like, okay, great, affiliate isn't for me, just because we kind of just screwed up way too much by just focusing on all the wrong areas, if you will.
You're focusing too much on informational content rather than money pages.
Yeah, so that was one of the big ones. Was we spent a lot of money on informational content for internal linking and all that kind of good stuff, which just wouldn't make us any money because it's only Amazon affiliates. There's no like AdSense or any RPM networks on it. So we just spent a lot of money on the informational content and the occasional money page, and we spent a lot of money just sending links to money pages and hoping to see like, okay, great, let's send a bunch of links to a bunch of different pages and see what happens. So it was something where we were investing like $2,000 a month into the site, I think, for like six months or so. I think it was about 4 months at that, and then like the last 2 months we're heavily investing. It's just the amount of time went up, but the amount of money put in went down, and it just like wasn't moving anywhere because we just got way too ambitious if you will, compared to what I'm more so doing now, which is just, okay, great, find one content silo and just create a crap ton of content that's all money page content, and just don't bother with informational content.
Yeah, it's just what converts at the end of the day. Like the intent is crazy important. Also, one of my first mistakes when starting out, like the first affiliate site, about 80% info content.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so just doesn't convert as well. Okay, what about the second site? Hopefully you have a better story, more positive experience.
Yeah, so certainly more positive. This one was also, I would say of the 5 sites that I've had, the first 2 were the roughest. The reason being is that, well, they were my first 2. So first one that we just talked about, that was maybe June, July 2018. This one, we're now at about August 2018, I believe. And I was like, maybe I'll just buy a site. And my current opinion is that never start a site, always buy a site. So I was like, maybe I'll buy a site. I don't really know what I'm doing, so I'll take it slow. My expectation was I just want something that someone really cared for, because I know that they're most likely not doing a bunch of shady stuff to it. If they were like, oh yeah, like this site is my baby sort of thing. So I found a site is doing about $200 a month on average over the course of about 12 months. The site has been up for like 2-3 years. The site owner hasn't touched it in like a year, besides just like minor changes. So I was like, okay, great. This site is stable. It's making a decent amount of money, averaging about $200 a month. It doesn't need a whole lot of TLC because, the site owner's just been sitting on it. So it's not like it's just going to, be spammed to death or whatever. And they were very firm on their price of $5,000 for it. So I was like, okay, cool. Let me buy this. Way overpriced. I've bought in sites that are making, the same amount, if not more, for a lot less. So bought the site, and the issue with that is that I shouldn't have bought a site that was that stable without anybody working on it, because that means I wasn't getting any residual benefits from anything that they had done over the past 3-4 months before I had bought it. So it just wasn't going to move unless I put a decent amount of effort into it. And then unfortunately, for whatever reason, the traffic stayed the same, but the earnings on the site went down. And I'm not really sure what happened. The earnings right now are about where they were when I bought it, which is nice. But for the first, so it's been like a year and a half since I had that site or something like that. So I would say for the first like almost year, if not about year, the site was earning under the average of what I bought it for. So that was kind of a loss there. But that was more so of, okay, great. I have the site. It's already making money. I can invest what it's already making back into the site so I can play around. It already has a ton of content. I can play around with restructuring that content, et cetera, et cetera. And what really helped with that site, which is why I'm a big proponent of buying sites, is that there are glaring issues that glaring as in like it took me over a year to realize it just because I never really sat down and looked at the site too hard, which is my bad. But I realized that all the money pages on the site, it would be like, let's just use the same example, like best printers or whatever. It would have like one printer, like here's the best printer, here's like two others if you're interested in the alternatives, and then here's just like like frequently asked questions or whatever. So there was no real reviews happening. It was like, here's an example of a printer, here's an example of this other type of printer. And so I went through over the past 3-4 months, maybe a little bit longer, we've just been rewriting every single money page that in order of traffic, just because it wasn't a review style article. Rankings had gone down a little bit on some of those pages, and I felt as though it was because there's just too much informational content on the money page. It wasn't really review content. And so since then, the traffic has been going up. Traffic, I don't know about traffic, but the earnings have been going up. So that was kind of a site that I bought. I'm happy with it so far. It's one thing that if I were to sell it, I'd be profitable on it. But it was a good learning experience of getting an intro to buying sites, because it wasn't something that was super high risk, but also because it wasn't high risk, it also wasn't really very high reward. It's one site, if I put in a bunch of time, put in some extra money, buying more links, getting more content, it could grow. But that's a lot less attractive compared to the other sites, which I've been focusing a lot more on, which is how can I get a site, look for a site that's ready to, double to 10x earnings over the next couple of months because they're selling it at a bad time when they shouldn't be selling it. And how can I just grow it in this one way to be able to flip it for a higher multiple later?
So how do you spot opportunities like that? Because you mentioned first off, okay, so you bought the site for 5,000,
Yep.
making about $200 per month, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a 25x multiple.
Roughly, yeah.
So I'm sorry, my math.
Yeah.
Okay, so where do you look for sites? Do you look for Flippa, Facebook groups, any recommendations so people can find a good deal?
Yeah, so all the sites that I have purchased have been through Facebook. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I've done it that way because I'm lazy. And just all I have to do is put one post in like 3 groups, and I'll get like 200 people messaging me, most of which are complete crap, but like it doesn't, it's not too much effort. If someone were to seriously want to buy a site, I would choose a niche first and then go to Google, export everybody who's ranking and just look at who's ranking on page 2 or 3, and then offer them, like find it where it's like some dude's personal site that he started because like he just really loves printers. And so, it's like, I started the site, started getting some traffic, put some links on it, starts making some money, but they're like SEO, never heard of it. Like those are the sites where when you go in there and they're like, I knew somebody who had a site that he started because he was really passionate about cars, and he was making like $7-8 a month off of Amazon affiliates. He had no idea what SEO was. He was just like, I just started writing a bunch of content and eventually started ranking. So someone like that, you might be able to offer them a 10 to 15 to 18, 19, 20x multiple, which would be cheaper than what most SEOs would want by far, where they're more so looking for the 30 to 40 most of them. You can certainly find much lower, which is what I tend to look for. But you can go up to the site owners and here's your site that makes $1,000 a month, I'll give you $18,000 for it. And they're like, wow, like that's a lot of money. So like that's where you're going to find the best deals. And if you're not buying from SEOs, then you don't have to worry too much about the shady stuff that they're doing because they don't even know how to do that. Where in the SEO realm, I'd say a lot of the sites that get sent to me, I'm like, okay, this is the shadiest thing I've ever seen. Like, I'm not going to touch this. But yeah, so I just post in the Facebook groups. People reach out, and if it looks decent, I just tell them to email me so I can look into it. And then I just kind of do my due diligence from there, mainly just because I can't be bothered to like research niches and everything like that. The whole goal for me with the affiliate is to put in the least amount of time and effort and energy possible, which, and I'm not being like, hey, here's how I'm going to become a billionaire by doing this. But I'm just like, I don't have the time for it. So I need to figure out, can I make this work while putting in as little time as possible?
And what are some of the things you look for that show like the site has the potential to like double in terms of the traffic, the earnings, or just increase without you investing a lot of time and energy into it?
Yeah. So some of the things I look for is sites that just weren't built very well. So is it a bit slow? Is it a bit pain in the ass to navigate? Is the money page itself just very boring to look at? So these are a lot of like CRO quick wins. Like that's, if you can do anything that's going to maximize the existing traffic, that's going to be the fastest way. Because if you're like, hey, great, I can improve the ranking over the course of 90 days, and that'll increase my earnings by 20%. Or if you can go, okay, great, I'm going to add a table on each money page. It's going to take me like 10 minutes per money page to do that, and then earnings will go up by 20% because of that. So that's those sort of things I'm looking at. Do they not feature an individual product and really make the best product stand out? Is there no table? Are there no buttons, right? I have a site that I still haven't fixed this issue, but there are no buttons. It's just like review image, and there's no button to actually click to buy. So probably most people that are viewing that article don't even realize that if you click the image, it'll go to Amazon. So just things like that. Another thing to look for is that I found on one site is that some of their affiliate links, they just didn't exist. So they had some review pages that just didn't have affiliate links on because they must have forgotten to actually add them. So that can be a really quick win if that page gets traffic and just the links just don't go anywhere. Other things are, have they been actively working on the site? And this is a case study that I did by accident 2-3 years ago, because I had a site and then I kind of forgot that I owned it like 3 or 4 times. It's just like a personal like mess around with the site. Normally when I'm just like testing a plugin, I want to make sure it's not going to blow up a site or whatever. I just like do it on that site. I still kind of ranks for a little bit of stuff. But I was like, okay, great. Let me actually try to rank this site. It's like a PPL site. So I was like, might as well try to make the money back that I spent on it. So I sent a couple links to it, and then I forgot about it for like 2 months. And I was like, oh yeah, I sent some links to it. I should check in on it. And so it went from like number 100 to like number 20 something, I was going to say, over the course of like 2-3 months that I kind of forgot about it. And then 8 months in, because I forgot about the site again, it was number 7. So I sent like 2-3 links to it. It went from like number 100 to number 7. It's not like super competitive. But so what you can see there is the trend of how just like a clean site that Google has no reason to penalize in an update that has some links being sent to it that are going to take a while to see its full kind of effect of that link, if you will, kind of playing out over time. So if I see a site that someone has been building links to, decent enough quality links, because link building is one thing I would say that people generally get wrong in terms of quality. And if you're only looking for quality link buildings, you're going to have a real hard time if you're just looking within our circles. So I was like, okay, great. These sites have a decent amount of links that are okay. I don't think it's going to get it penalized. I don't think it was too aggressive on like the PBNs that they may have sent, which I don't use anymore, but most of the sites that I've built have used some amount of them, either as tier 1s or tier 2s. And so it's like, okay, great. They've been building links fairly actively, some guest posts, some et cetera, some this, some that, over the past 3-4 months. I know that if I were to buy this site today, I'm still going to see residual benefits from the links that they have gone, in the past, 20, 30, 60, 90 days. So I already know that I'm going to improve, the SEO equity, if you will, of the site. I can see that they've released content. I know that, okay, these, they said that they've released, on average 2 money pages a month or something like that. Okay, great. How many of those are under 6 months old that haven't really gained traction yet? This is another kind of case study accidental or not as accidental, but I had an affiliate site, my first one. I noticed that there was a particular product page I was getting a lot of clicks for. So I created an individual page for that product page. So it was like a top 10 product page, but it was ranking for the individual product on that page. So I was like, man, it's not really relevant. Nobody else has that article that's just dedicated to this one product. So I brought that out, one individual product page. It's the most relevant article on Google, got it indexed. Nothing happened. It took Google 3 or 4 months to even give it any sort of traffic. And then at the time, it ranked like number 2 and 3 or for one keyword, and number 1 and 2 for variation. It was like the review variation 1 and 2, the just product name. Like,
what about the inner linking that you do to it?
Yeah. So on the top 10 page or whatever, I just interlinked to the product page saying like read full review. And then on the product page itself, it's like, if you want to see, all the best inkjet printers or whatever, go to the top 10 page. So, okay. So we had that. It was fully optimized, and it still took like, 3-4 months for Google to give us any sort of love. So that's what I'm looking for with the content as well, is that I know just from experience and from kind of more isolated tests, if you will, because on client work, you always have to have deliverables. You're always doing stuff on the site. You can't just let a site sit. So I was like, okay, great. how much content have they created that I know is only a couple months old, because the site isn't a massive authority. I know that Google isn't going to give this, the insane amount of rankings and stuff. It's not Amazon.com. It's not Wikipedia, where they just release an article today. It's going to rank tomorrow. So I know that all those sort of things can help me increase the earnings, are going to help me increase the traffic, a couple months from now. And it's a bit of a risky play. Yeah. So, because you're assuming that those are going to be links that are going to help you, and that, you're assuming that, that Google is going to give you some residual benefits. You're assuming that the site is going to win in future updates. So on the SEO side of things, I'm looking for more so things like that. And then on-site is the number one thing I also look for, because a lot of people just spend way too much effort on links. So I'm looking at, okay, great. What's the content quality, as well as on the CRO side of things? Was this written by someone that English is like their second language, and so it's really broken English? I've had a couple comments placed on the sites that obviously don't get approved, but they're just like, this content isn't even readable. So like those can be really quick wins. And so, improving on-site, where it's like, oh, okay, they don't mention the keyword very clearly here, or like their subheaders aren't optimized. Those are all things that to me say, okay, it's not going to take a ton of TLC to actually grow this site. And we've had a couple of great wins, where there was one site that I bought, literally doubled its earnings. I bought it for, I think it was like an 18x multiple, so very low, because the person just needed the cash, which is a great way to get a cheap site, is someone that just needs cash right away. So bought the site, doubled its earnings within like 30 days. All I did on that site was change out the affiliate links, because I just didn't have the time to do anything. Another site that I bought, it was a site that was only like 6 months old, and it was only making like a couple bucks. I bought it because it was just super cheap, and I was like, okay, great. It's 6 months old. It's not really gaining any traction. And then, I just sat on it, and like 2 months later or so, it like 10x its earnings. So still not a ton of money, but it's because that site, they just didn't give it enough time to actually see the benefit of the content that was placed on a brand new website that's only been around for like 6 months. So just some instances like that, just people that are looking to make an exit earlier than they should.
Yeah, and just to add, you made a very, very good point on conversion rate optimization, which is, again, a guessing game if you're not really testing in depth. But then again, if you just add tables, good buttons, make it usable, better, everything like that, it should generally yield a positive improvement. Just wanted to mention how we usually do, whether it's for a client site, a client affiliate, or just for our sites. There's also a lot of quick wins that you can get just from technical SEO standpoint. For example, 3 things that come to mind is checking the index. There are so many sites out there that are making insane money, but can generally get a crazy boost just by taking a look at if they have author pages indexed, category pages, things like that. Links, broken backlinks, another one, and finally, just general inner linking. And if they're linking out with do follow links, so for example, to other domains, also quite a big one from my experience.
Yeah. So with the client work, doing a technical audit is one of the first things that we do, because that's especially if they've worked with multiple agencies beforehand. Because what I find is often what I call just layering, is that they hired one company, they just followed the processes. They hired another company, they just followed the processes without ever bothering to check what the other company did right or wrong. So it's just like, okay, great, here are the issues, now we'll just layer our work on top of them. So there can be a lot of technical wins on the affiliate side of things, because I'm trying to put in the least amount of time as possible. My strategy right now is just create money content, buy as high quality content for as low money as possible, give a decent content outline, copy and paste it onto the site, and then just continue along with my day. So I'm trying to put in the least amount of time. Also, so is it possible that the site, so I don't even do any on-site for any of my sites right now. Like I technically don't do any SEO for my sites, besides just like posting content, because I don't have the time for it, and they're still growing. So it could grow a lot more if I put more time into it, but it's like, okay, great. The content's doing decent enough. There's like almost no internal linking on any of the sites because I just haven't had the time to look at it. So like those would be like, if someone were to buy the sites from me, that would be a lot of really great wins for them. Or it's just a matter of, okay, great. One of the reasons why I sold the site, while I'll probably sell maybe 1 or 2 more this year, is so that I have the time to actually go back and take some of those sites that are earning a decent amount of money and, do some of that internal linking, do some of those fix some of the stupid issues that exist that I just couldn't be bothered to fix, to then see those, kind of quick wins. But right now it's just, okay, what's the least amount of time that I have to put in? The least amount of time for me is just have a plan of just a couple of, here's 15 articles that we need to create. We can do maybe 2 a month based on the earnings of the site. So here's a template of how I'm going to order the content. Let me just spend 5 minutes building out this template, order content with a writer, send it off to them, get the content back, copy and paste it on the site, call it a day.
80-20 rule, it's finest.
Yeah, pretty much.
Awesome. Okay, just before we wrap up, just one more question. For someone who's maybe looking into buying their first site, and yeah, you already mentioned how they can find a good deal. Any other words or piece of advice that would tremendously help them out?
Yeah, sure. So I would say if you're looking to buy a site, number one thing you have to do your due diligence. First is that there's no such thing as an average multiple. So everyone likes to say, the average multiple is 30x, 33x, 28x, etc. There's no such thing. The site's worth whatever someone's willing to pay for it. The site earns $1 and someone's willing to pay $1 million for it, the site's worth $1 million. If the site earns $1 million, no one's willing to pay $1 for it, the site isn't worth anything. So you have to look at what the site is worth to you. And I can get into an example of that in a second. But the things you want to look out for are, what are the earnings? What is the trend of the earnings? Is it trending up? Is it trending down? Just what it makes on average over the course of 6-12 months doesn't really matter. If it's been trending down for the past 4 months, well, you can expect that it's going to continue to trend down once you get it, unless you see like, oh yeah, this is why, because they've accidentally changed their affiliate links or they broke a plugin or whatever. So is it trending up? Then you know that even if they want more than you're willing to pay for it, or like more than you would normally pay for a site that's earning this much. However, it's trending up. So you might be able to make a calculated guess that, if you buy this, you're buying actually at a discount because it's going to continue to trend up even without your effort. Same thing with traffic. Look to see traffic. The number one thing when I'm buying from other SEOs is I look to see how they're trying to screw me over, even if they're not trying to screw me over, because you'll be like, okay, have you ever used PBNs? No. What are all these PBNs that I found then? Oh, right. Because so some people don't even know that, how often do you get PMs on Facebook like, do you want to buy my guest post? And it's just a bunch of PBN sites, right? So what they'll say is, either ignorance or arrogance is, I've only done guest posting. Okay, great. Awesome. No, these are really crappy PBNs I could have found on like BHW or something like that. So due diligence there, I look at a lot on the, on the Ahrefs. I'll go through their link profile quite a bit. I'll want to know what they've done on the site. I'm looking to see if they just like through conversation, they're trying to screw me over, just because I want to be extra careful with that. But just looking at traffic, looking at the site itself, looking at the earnings and the actual trends of all that, and then just looking at the link profile gives me a good idea, because it's just a bunch of crap links. I don't want to buy something that has too much of a risk of possibly getting penalized or devalued in an update, just because I don't want to put in the time to fix that. I would say from there, just looking for a good deal. I say no to 90% of the things that come my way. I'm looking for something that I don't want to pay more than a 25x multiple, even though something might be worth paying for, because I don't want to put in a lot of time. A lot of the sites that I've bought in, the first one I think was actually $5,000 divided by 200. I think that's about 28 or so. Someone will have to check my math, but like that one was more than I would ever pay for it. I bought 2 more at one time. That one of them was like a 17, 18x multiple, and because it like doubled its earnings like a month later, like technically it was like a 9 multiple, if you will. And then the other one I bought for, I think it was about a 20x multiple. So I'm looking for people that are going after a lower multiple, because it's going to take me less money and effort. Because even if I decide I don't want to work on that site, if I just bought a site for an 18x and I can turn around and sell it for 30x, it doesn't matter what happened to the earnings. I could sell it the next month, the next day, and still make my money on it. So that's what I would say in that. And then in terms of what a site is worth. So for example, if someone's looking to buy a site for, they have a site earns $100 a month, they're asking for 3,500. So let's say a 35x multiple. Most people go, oh no, the standard multiple. Let's say they're asking for 4,000. So they're asking for 40x. Everyone's going to go, standard multiple is 28 to 30. It's way too high, way too high, way too high. If you look at a site that's earning $100 and you're like, okay, great, I have a private affiliate in this regard because I'm in this niche and I know the conversion rate, I know the click rates, and I know that if I just switch the affiliate codes, that's going to go up to $150 a month. Or maybe, maybe they're on Amazon, you have a private commission that pays you like 10 times the amount that Amazon does. You might look at that and go, okay, great. Based on the numbers that I know for sure, the site's actually going to double its earnings as soon as I switch to the links. So, okay, great. So that site now in your mind, if you were to have the site now makes $200 a month, you look at the CRO side of things, you're like, you know what? I think I can probably, through improving the design of the site, increase it by 20% fairly quickly. Okay, great. So now that site's maybe worth $240 a month. So if you look at that, and if you still look at, a quote unquote standard multiple of 30x, let me just do some quick math here. $240 a month, 30x is 7,200. So that site to you is worth 7,200. They're only asking for $4,000, right? So you're buying that site at a discount. So then you can go to them and you can go, okay, great. You start negotiations. I'll give you, 2,500 for it. No, not going below 3,500. Okay, great. You're asking for a lot. I'll give you 3,000. No, I'm not going below 3,500. Fine. What do we mean? How about we mean middle 3,250? Great. They're laughing because you just bought a site for above, quote unquote, the average multiple. So they're laughing to the bank, and you're laughing because they only asked for 3,250 on a site that you're going to be able to over double the earnings on within 30 days. So the site's worth. The worth of the site is going to be different for each person. There's no such thing as a standard multiple. It's just, there's an average multiple based on, brokers and stuff like that. But that's, that just doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah. Just doing good research, just doing the math and kind of estimating guessing, in other words, what you can do really. And right. That's all it comes down to. Cool. I'll link your tool for the automation for the keyword research content plan below. If people have any questions, what's the best place to reach out to you? Your websites, everything like that.
Yeah, sure. So the best place would be if you go to jarodspiewak.com, just first-last-name.com. Contact form that will email me. I say that just because if I change my email, I still want people to be able to contact me. So if you want to get in touch with email, that's probably a great place. You can find me on YouTube, just Jarod Spiewak. I have a podcast I actually just started. We're 6 episodes in now. Only 5 have been released on YouTube. We typically do it on Facebook Live. So if you want to see them live, find me on Facebook. And that's what I'm going to be putting a decent amount of effort into. I'm doing that with Jonathan Keekbush, which is the founder of SEO Butler, and among other brands. So see that on there. And of course, the agency site is teambluedog.com.
Awesome. Yeah, all will be linked below. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.